Hi and welcome back to my channel. Sorry that the intro today is going to be a voiceover. I forgot to record the intro, so you're just going to see some footage. I'm going to be doing 4 looks using the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. Look how beautiful it is. These are the shades itself on my hand. Look at me fumble, look at me go. I'm going to do, like I said, 4 different looks with this palette. They're going to be spanned out over the last month or so of me messing around with makeup. I have done more than just the 4 looks, but I wanted to showcase these 4 in particular. So I hope you enjoy this video, hope you enjoy the footage. This is my first eye look that I've created using the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. I've currently got the shades Timeless, Admire, Passion, Devotion, Allure, Magnetic and Captivating, all on this eyeball to make this glorious concoction. So you can kind of see a little bit there where it has a kind of shift. Hopefully that looks good on camera. I haven't peeled the sticker off this yet, so I'll quickly do that for you. Beautiful. The other product that is on my eyes as well, the NARS Smudge Proof Eyeshadow Base, the Mecha Max Zoom Shadow Stick in Espresso, KVD Tattoo Liner in Mad Max Brown, the Hourglass 1.5mm liner in Canyon in the Waterline and in the Tight Line. And for mascara I use the Maybelline Sky High. Hopefully you enjoyed this first look. Now cut to the second one. So this is my second look that I've done using the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. This time I wanted to do a bit more of a matte focused look, so I don't know how much you can tell on camera. I do have shimmers going on the lid. It isn't fully matte, but I mostly wanted to try and go as soft as possible with the mattes. So for this look I firstly went in with Timeless and Intoxicating mixed together on a brush and went through the outer portion of my lid and crease area, sweeping it through to make this nice soft brown and gradient. And then I used a little bit of Timeless on its own to deepen up the upper and lower outer eyelid area. And then I use a little bit of Passion on its own to really deepen the right outer corner. And then kind of in this inner portion going into my nose bridge, I use a little bit of the shade Admire mixed with Intoxicating to really make a soft colourful gradient. For the centre kind of lid area, I went in with the shade Romantic on a fluffy brush and just kind of buffed it around. I used Captivating. Inner corner area, upper brow, highlighting on the cheekbone. Very kind of toned down, neutrally look compared to what I normally do. For other products I use for overall kind of foundation, I use the Glaminatrix Vision Cover Cream in shade N01. For blush, I took this shade Total Betty from the Just a Girl 3-pan blush palette. This was gifted to me by my beautiful friend Joe. Went in with Moxie as kind of like a blush topper, and then I used the Captivating shade from Rich Romantic as the highlighter itself. These two, made by Mitchell, All Smudge No Budge eyeliners. I've got the shade Grayscale on the outer corners, and then I've got the shade Quite White on the inner portion of my eyes. For mascara, I've got the Mecha Max Wink Ink. This is just one coat on both eyes, both upper and lower. And then for the lips, I did a combo of Mecha Max's Pout Pencil in Plush, Dusty Rose shade. I used this Flower Nose liquid lipstick. I believe this is the shade Tribunal Angel, shade W05. It's a lovely formula that is almost like a powder matte. That's a kind of swatch of it there. Love this formula, and like I said, that's what's on my lips with the Mecha Max lip pencil. But that is my second look. Hope you enjoyed seeing this quick overview of it. Now on to the next look. So this is my third look that I created. Sorry if this portion is a bit all over the place. I'm trying out some different settings on my camera. For the inner corner, I went in with the shade Admire, mixed a little bit with the shade Intoxicating, just in these inner corner areas. I forgot to mention that I used the shade Devotion on the inner lower lash line on its own. I just packed it on top of the ABH eye primer. Built up the outer purpley portion using the shade Cherish, and then I deepened that up with the shade Intimate, and then finally the shade Passion. I also softened the edges just in the top portion with the shade Intoxicating too. And for the glorious shimmer that's in the centre of my lid, I used the shade Rich. I also partially highlighted the upper cheekbone and brow area with the shade Captivating. I cannot get enough of this shade here. Such a gorgeous shade. I love Captivating. I wanted to go for a bit more of a glamorous look with some colours without being too punchy and over the top. I like how pastel-y soft this is while also having that impact. It's a very gorgeous combo. I'm very happy with the end result. And the last look that I'll do, because this will be the third of 4, the fourth look I'll probably go full balls to the wall and get really dark and deep. These gorgeous mattes all over the lid, but I've liked these softer, paler looks that I've done so far. Admittedly, I keep on gravitating towards Devotion in particular and Admire. I really like these two colours in particular in this palette. They're just stunning shades, especially Devotion. I do like how Admire's turned out, but there is something about this. And I do love the purples, don't get me wrong. This shade Cherish in particular I really do enjoy. After I do my fourth look, I also want to compare the purples to other shades that I own from Glaminatrix and just see what they're like, because I'm interested to see how they compared to the purples in here. Now for what else I've got going on my eyes. Well, on the sides of my face I put the smallest bit of blush on. I did use this Cosmetics. This shade in particular is Venetian Rose, and I used that on the outer portions of my cheeks. And then on top of that, I went in with the middle shade in this Pat McGrath here, which is Desert Orchid. And then I also used a little bit of the highlighter as well. So for my base, I used the Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer, not only on the upper and lower lid. A little bit of it was dabbed in the waterline using a little paddle-like brush, like this one that I've got from Morphe. This is the Morphe M224. For lashes, I had used these House of Lashes, and I think these are the style Noir Fairy Black. I quite like this style. I've cut them to size, so I've cut off maybe 3 of the longer spikier lengths on either side, just to give me this flared out look, which I quite enjoy with my lashes, and I don't like to bring lashes too far into the inner corners. For mascara, I use the good old Mecha Max Wink Ink again, and that's all I've got for my third eye look using the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. Now I'll cut to the fourth and final look, the application, and then I'll discuss my final thoughts of the palette. So I'm back to do the fourth and final look using the Glaminatrix Rich Romantic palette. Absolutely stunning thing this beauty is. Just look at her. Still not really sure what look I want to do. I know I said I'm going to do a bolder look when I finish off doing the third look, so we'll find out what that means when I play with it. But while I play with the palette and do a look, I'm also going to discuss my thoughts about the palette, and I also, after doing a look, I want to compare to some of the purples that are in the other palettes that I've gotten from Glaminatrix. There is differences I can see in person, but I'd like to just swatch and see what the purples are like side by side. I will quickly prime my eyes with the Janessa Myrix Colour Fix. Firstly, I want to build some depth in the outer corners. I'm going to take this darkest brown here, Passion. Kind of go in the outer corners and just smoke out this brown. What I quite like about this particular shade is that it can nicely add depth to most of the colours that are mattes, so I've used it to deepen up Admire, Devotion, Cherish, Intimate in multiple looks that I've done not on camera, because I have done a few without recording or capturing the end result, just so I can have a bit more of a full-fledged thought process when discussing this palette on camera. Nice and easy to blend out and match that on both sides. Now, using my Made by Mitchell ME3 brush, little fluffy blender, I'm going to go in with Intimate. Intimate I find has a really nice pigment and punch to it. I do find that the pigment is generally pretty strong with the purple in this palette, which is great, as not all purples have the kind of punch that you necessarily want. So I'm just kind of building up a more winged shape on top of this brown and using the brown to deepen, but really filling in a lot of this space and blending out that purple without dipping in too much, because I want it really soft and diffused. This shade in particular I've used quite a lot on its own, and also to add depth to Cherish. It does pull a little bit kind of reddish. Was looking magical. Gonna add a bit more depth with the intimate shade in the outer corners and blend it out further. Here comes the drama. I'm going to blend it in kind of to where the inner brow area is. The shade Intimate is the one I'm most curious to see how it compares to some of the other darker purples in other palettes that I've bought from Glaminatrix. I'm going to start also dragging that a little bit to underneath the lower lash line, just about halfway in. Start also adding some of that colour to blend out the browns down there. And I'm also kind of making this harsh V shape along the upper lash line and also going into the crease. This is a shape I personally like on my eyes, and I find it is flattering for filling in that inner space with colours. On a really big fluffy brush, I'm going to take this shade Cherish and mix it a little bit with Devotion just to get this interesting shade, and I'm going to just place it in this like inner portion. Some of these shades I find in the palette do blend particularly well together, and you can make some pretty unique tones. One I find is difficult to work with, Intoxicating. I find it tends to make shades a bit too milky pale, whereas I kind of want, when I'm mixing those the shades together with it, I want it to kind of add lightness and not diffuse it too much, but it really does just add this milky tone. Also going to run it a little bit on that centre and nose bridge to kind of marry those tones together. Not too much, almost using it kind of like blush. I'm going to go in a bit more with just Devotion on its own to kind of add a little bit of a punch to the inner area. Now for the centre portions of the lid, I'm actually thinking of using the shade that I was discussing that I find difficult to use sometimes for muting out this particular shade, Intoxicating. I'm going to use it to actually mattify this blank space on my lid, because it's going to be a bit more of a matte look I'm going for this. Also put a little bit on the lower lash line, and also put a little bit on the brow bone area, almost use it as a matte highlight too. Now just to add a little pop, I'm going to go in with the shade Rich and use it just on the inner corner area as a highlighter, because I want the rest of the look to be pretty matte. And I want this to be a pretty subtle sparkle on the inner corner, but just enough to be there and catch the light. Really enjoyed doing a lot of different types of looks with this palette. I've done a lot more grungy, deeper looks with graphic liner. I've done more soft pastelized looks. I've done a bit more glam, dramatic like this one. Which is a very versatile, fun palette. Now I'm pretty much done with shadows for this look. I'm not going to do liner and lashes and such, and I'm also going to swatch some shades on my face, and it's just going to be easier for me to use makeup remover without doing eyeliner and such. I also want to use it as an opportunity to experiment with some of the darker shades that are in other palettes to see what they are like. I want to kind of compare other purples. Swatch Intimate and Cherish. So that is Intimate. That just on its own swatch so beautifully. Now Cherish. I'll build up Cherish a little bit more. But they're both beautiful shades. They swatch really nicely. For most purples that don't swatch too well, this is really impressive. I want to go in with this purple shade here, which is from Glamorous palette. And this one. Another one from Glamorous. Darker purple. Now more shades that are similar to the tones that are in the Rich Romantic, which is up here. This more burgundy purpley tone. A bit brighter than what this one is. Now this darker one up here, which is from Into the Night. re-swatch that. It's not in the best placement, but as you can see, there's quite a decent array of purples. There is also this darker purplish tone from Nocturnal. So they're kind of all the purples that I've got from Glaminatrix. So you can kind of see that they have a decent selection of purples. Make me happy to see. And as I said earlier, I just want to see what happens if I use one of these at depth. So I'm going to go in with this almost black, but it's a very dark bluish colour. And that's from the Glamorous palette. This is the Glamorous palette. This is Into the Night. This is Nocturnal. These are just single shades. Then I'll get the Nova Mitchell fluffy brush just to diffuse that a bit further. I love that. So I do feel like the Rich Romantic palette could do with a bit more depth, but also I can equally see why they didn't necessarily add much more depth. If you've got other palettes, and be it either from them or other brands, you should have some more deeper tones like this that you can add alongside the palette just to really flesh out a look like this, because I feel like, for me personally, this is what the palette's missing: a bit more depth and a more pale neutrally tone to blend out with. I do feel like if I had the Nearly Naturals, I think it's the Nearly Naturals palette, I would have more tones that I am after for blending out, so that might be a palette I buy in the future just to flesh out more of the colour story. That's if I do so, but otherwise I'm really happy with how all of this goes together. I guess the one critique I have that is not formula and such related with this, I wish the brand offered an option where it was a full size pans and not just these smaller, I think they're 21mm compared to 26. I'd prefer having a version of this with 26mm pans so I could put it in something like this and have more consistency. Tis what it is. This isn't a cheap palette anyways. This is full retail 90 Australian dollars. So it is an expensive palette for having smaller pans, but you are getting 15 shades compared to the standard 12 that is usually in their larger pan palettes. So it kind of justifies, but I would be fine with spending an extra $15-20 for the larger pan size if it was an option. Because if you want to wear, the Glaminatrix palettes usually are magnetic, so you can just remove pans and do whatever you like. I would have been much happier with this palette, generally speaking, from a functionality standpoint, if I could interchange shades from the other palettes into this packaging or the larger ones without much issue, but because of the smaller pan size in this, just makes it a lot more difficult to do that as a thing. But I've pretty much done a look using every single shade in this palette. I'm very happy overall with how it looks. I'll do some quick swatches on my arm and cut it in. This palette itself I'm very happy with. If you love this kind of colour story where you get the romantic kind of peachy neutrally tones, getting some more colour with the purples and having pretty sparkles, be it either just the standard kind of shimmer, which is what Allure is like, or you're getting into the duochromes of the other shades. This is a beautiful palette to add, especially if you use mostly neutrals and you want to play a little bit in colour but not get too crazy. Thank you for watching this video of me playing with the palette and doing multiple looks. Hope you enjoyed seeing the snapshots of the first three and me applying the shadows for this fourth look really quickly. I am again very happy with this palette and do not regret buying it at all, would highly recommend. And again, my main real gripe is I wish the brand offered an option with the larger pan size, purely for people like me who want to have more ease of flexibility placing pans between palettes and having the consistent size. Formula's amazing of all the shadows. The only one I really had a kind of iffiness with is Intoxicating, again from that perspective of blending out some of these shades. It's just something you learn to work with. It's fine, it is what it is. I'm happy with the shades overall. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. Love hearts from Tasmania, Australia. Bye bye.